Nishant Malhotra from the Middle Road platform. The Middle Road is a global thought leader platform enabling social change and impact. The startup fuses media with edtech to spread affordable education. Check out www.themiddleroad.org. Today, I'm very happy to introduce Paola Cyment, a senior project manager at Women in Migration Network, a nonprofit that promotes women's human rights for all migration and development policy. Paola wears many hats professionally and has worked across many organizations and profiles within the international development sector. She's presently based in Buenos Aires, Argentina, the capital of Argentina, and has a master's degree in international affairs from the School of International and Public Affairs, Columbia University. In today's splendid discussion, I chat with Paola on many issues governing society, including women's rights. Hello, Paola. Great to have you here for a podcast with the Middle Road.
Hello, Nishant. Thank you very much for this opportunity. And I'm happy to talk with you.
Thank you. It was an absolute pleasure. And I really appreciate you accepting the invite. Paola, you work in a fascinating country, Argentina. I'm a diehard fan of Diego Maradona. I think nobody can forget Diego Maradona and 1986 World Cup. It had such a huge influence on everybody. Messi, of course, he's the present star in Argentina soccer team. Delighted to, feature ultimately somebody from Argentina on the platform. This is the first time somebody is there from, as a matter of fact, South America. A very small brief on Argentina. Argentina has a gross domestic product of about approximately USD 450 billion, or it could be about 455 billion in 2021. Argentina is one of the largest economies in Latin America. Argentina has a vast natural resources in energy and agriculture. Within its 2.8 million square kilometers of territory, Argentina is endowed with extraordinary fertile lands, gas, and lithium reserves, and has great potential for renewable energy. So this is a fantastic statistics I got from the World Bank. And before we be asking it about Paola on her present work, Paola, you do discuss about a present work at a Women in Migration Network.
Mm-hmm. Yes, well, as you mentioned before, Women in Migration Network is a global network, and it includes organizations and activists from around the globe. It was founded in 2012, so this is the 10th anniversary. Now, this year, we are celebrating our 10th anniversary. I have joined the network in 2015. And what we seek is to strengthen the human rights of migrant women and girls in international migration policy, and also to make intersectional realities of women in migration more visible within the global women's rights movement. So we work in these two spaces, in the global migration policy spaces and also in the feminist movement. And then particularly, I like to focus on my work in Women in Migration Network. For the past year, I've been the coordinator of the Bridging Gender and Migration project, which is supported by the Robert Bosch Foundation. And this project prioritizes cross-sectoral and intersectional organizing at global and regional level. And it also focuses on the nexus of migration, gender, climate, and labor as key global priorities. So for the past year, we have organized 5 regional dialogues in Latin America, in Africa, in Europe, in Asia, and also in the MENA region. And regional dialogues have been extremely rich and with exchanges with more than 150 participants from different social movements, from migration rights movement, women migrant movement, climate justice, labor unions, anti-racism movement. So it has been a great experience also to expand our presence in the regions. And then we have also organized 2 thematic global dialogues. One was a labor dialogue from a feminist lens, but labor migration. No? And then also this year, last month, during the Commission of the Status of Women in the UN, we organized a parallel event which was on the nexus of migration, gender, and climate change. And currently, we are participating in the International Migration Review Forum, which is the first international high-level dialogue that it's evaluating the progress of the Global Compact for Migration, which was approved by the UN General Assembly on 2018. And during these negotiations, what we are advocating for is for the Global Compact to center on the rights of migrants, the regularization of migration, and the non-criminalization of migrants, because we believe that this impacts directly on the lives of migrant women and girls.
I wanted to ask this follow-up question. I do agree. The situation for migrants has been very bad. If you look at Algeria, expelled about 17,000 migrants last year, mostly this is of sub-Saharan origin, between January and October last year, which included hundreds of women and children and some registered asylum seekers. Now, this continued even during the COVID-19 lockdown, including violations of women's dignity. Women trafficking is also increasing according to human rights at an alarming rate in some countries globally. On the other hand, we have also seen Armenia ratified the Council of Europe's Convention on Protection of Children Against Sexual Exploitation and Sexual Abuse. Now, you're an advocate of migrants, women's rights. What are your views about 2021? Now, when you're talking about 2021, it might have been a very mixed year. Do you think we are making a progress with respect to migrant women and girls' human rights abuse globally?
Yes, I'm pretty pessimistic. I don't think that there was no progress at all, mainly because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
The situation of migrant women and girls has worsened during the pandemic because what it has done is to exacerbate the existing inequalities. There was an increase in the loss of jobs, also on the other hand, more exploitation of migrant women workers, also an increase on gender-based violence and an increase of xenophobia. So the situation really is really troublesome. But it's important that the pandemic has exposed the inequalities that women migrant workers are living.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, the inequalities have sort of, because of the pandemic and because of the situation, now we even see the conflict which is happening in Ukraine. So there have been a lot of issues, and I think the situation is not getting any better. That's true. You worked on a global mapping report on the intersection of gender and migration. Now, your work encompassed research of more than 300 organizations. Can we share the methodology of the process behind the report? You studied at a policy school at Columbia University. It's one of the best policy schools and one of the best academic institutions in the world. Now, how did your school also, if you could take over, you could talk about the process behind what sort of frameworks you used, and you could also talk about how your how your education prepared your journey within the development sector.
Mm-hmm. Well, first I'm going to answer your first question about the methodology of this report. And it was also a one-year process. And what we did was to carry out a survey during 3 months. It was carried out globally. It was during the lockdown, so it was all virtual. We did an online survey. And we had responses of more than 300 organizations around the globe. So based on these responses, we also carried out 20 in-depth interviews. Also, we wanted to have a balance between regions of the different experts we interviewed. And then what we did also was to not only to do an interactive mapping, but also we elaborated a report that analyzes the situation of migrant women and girls in each region. And I don't know if I can share the screen, because I would like to show you the website.
Yeah, sure. Sure, you can. I'll just make, I mean, I'd love to see, and I would like the audience also to see, because this is going to be a video and audio recording both.
You can find also this website with all this work at www.womeninmigration.org/map/. Well, the report is titled No Borders to Equality, Global Mapping of Organizations Working on Gender and Migration. And here you have access to 3 tools. You have the report, also you have an interactive map I like to show you.
Okay, this looks amazing. I think I missed it out. I would have had a couple of more questions otherwise on the topic. It looks fabulous. Yeah.
Yes, here you can enter, for example, and have all the information and contact details of each organization we have mapped. And then you have also an interactive data visualization tool that you have global, regional, and sub-regional. For example, South Asia, you would like to know what sectors these organizations belong to. So then you have all the categories, if they work with climate justice, development, education, refugees, trade unions, also the types of service, the different territorial scopes, if they work nationally, regionally. So I think you can find all this data very useful. Also, the situation of women immigration in the region, for example, survivors of violence, migration status. So here you have a lot of data. And then finally, you can also download the report.
Yeah, that's pretty good. We have a very clear-cut idea of where the actors were. You could look at in terms of industry. You could also look at in terms of the countries, right? Or the regions. You could also do that.
The regions, not per country. You can look regions, at right, globally, regionally, and sub-regions.
So, great. The majority of the non-profits or the organizations which you interviewed, they're from which region? Were more from Latin America or?
No, it's really balanced.
Very balanced, okay.
Yes, organizations from all regions.
Please, Paula, do continue.
Okay, so your second question was referred to my experience at Columbia University. I think it has been very rich. It was my first time abroad, and I think it opened my mind to the world, and it made me think that I could also work globally, not only nationally or in Latin America. I met people from all over the globe there, and I got very interested in Africa and also in Asia. So I learned really a lot, and also I think the most important was the networking and the people I got to know. Not the curricula was interesting, but I think the most interesting was the persons and the access I got to get there. And after that, I was able to live in Europe for 10 years. And then on 2010, I came back to Argentina. So it really opened the door to have a global experience.
Yeah, I'm sure New York would have been fantastic, Did you not only the network, do you take any specific courses? Because the audience, this could be a great time for them to understand, there are a lot of courses nowadays in program evaluation. It could be in, either qualitative or quantitative aspects. Would you like to sort of, comment on any course which you think could have helped you in your job?
On statistics, data analysis, and also economics. I think the different courses, the thing is that my time in Colombia was back in 2001, 2010, and I think the world has changed a lot. So many things I learned at that time that you have to be updated always, and I think it was a good basis, but then you need to be always learning and updating yourself, because the world changes very rapidly, very fast.
Yeah, that's true. It's a very rapidly changing world. It's another very interesting thing. I saw that you were an expert and you work with you're a part of the expert working group on addressing women's human rights in the global impact. Now, which you mentioned, now you worked along with many leading organizations. For example, if you take United Nations Women, UNICEF, ILO, UNHCR, etc. How effective are these global institutions today? We'll ask that question in addressing social problems. And what do you think could be done to empower these institutions for bettering humanity?
Mm-hmm. Well, I was thinking about your question, and I think, well, it have been sort of ineffective, but I think that is due to the gap that exists between the global and the local. So I think that's one of the deficits that this organization have. If they are only working from their headquarters in New York or in Geneva, I think they get lost from the reality, the daily reality of people. But I think that with this new Secretary General, there has been, they are changing the structure of the UN in a positive way, and their focus is more at national level and not so much at global level, or not only at global. And for example, the UN Migration Network that was created after the Global Compact for Migration, they are creating national networks, national migration networks that include all the UN agencies at country level. So for example, I participated as a consultant on the creation of the UN Migration Network in Argentina. And this was a great experience because all the UN agencies were participating. And for example, last month we had, I was a panelist at an event that UN Women in Argentina organized. And it was about the situation of migrant women in Argentina with many participants. So I think that this gets these agencies more to have more proximity to the local realities of people.
We come to a question about Argentina. Now, one of the basic issues which I read a bit about Argentina and things which keep coming across is legalization and decriminalization of abortion is a huge issue in your country. Now, since December 2020, abortion is legal in Argentina within the first 14 weeks of pregnancy. Now, the implementation of the law of legalization of abortion within the first 14 weeks of pregnancy met with very severe roadblocks. How would you rate Argentina among the South American countries in this aspect? Because Argentina is one of the leading economies around the world and people look up to Argentina.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I think, Argentina is a leading country in relation to abortion in South America. The first one to legalize abortion was Uruguay and in 2011. But then, secondly, it was Argentina. And this is due to the feminist movement. It was not a law that came from the politicians. It was really like a 15-year-old fight of feminists that mobilized and got all the society mobilized to legalize abortion. And then it came also a similar process in Colombia and in Chile. So I think there is a wave in South America to legalize abortion. But at the same time, there is a counterattack of right-wing activists and movements, especially religion groups, evangelist, Catholic groups. So this is like we cannot. We need to keep fighting as feminists because we could lose these rights easily too. So yes, I think we need to secure what we have achieved.
Yeah, that's true. And I really hope so, because South America's land of Che Guevara. I know one of the most fascinating and I think one of the most ideological leaders in the past century, or I would say I rank him one of the best. There'll be a series on ideological leaders, and I look up to him. He was a very passionate person. And it's good you talked about Uruguay. Uruguay is a fascinating country, and they did a great job in fighting pandemic using technology. So I had read a small case about how Uruguay did. And you have Chile, you have Costa Rica. Costa Rica is among the happiest countries in the world. I think it's one of the few emerging marketing countries in the top 20. Carry on, and a lot of things are happening now in South America.
Mm-hmm.
Now
And now we have this new government in Chile. The president is 35 years old, and he comes from the student movement. So I have a lot of hope in the changes that will come from Chile.
And I also read one of the, I think it's Uruguay or Bolivia, one of the heads. He's a great guy. He, he lives in $1 of salary or something. I'm not exactly sure the value, but I was fascinated at it. And he just drives his second-hand car or something like that. So, it's good now, since we had a conversation of this, I'm going to find out and, write a bit about that. I was hoping to also interview him one day. It's a very fascinating story. Come to, the issue with Ukraine. Now, the war in Ukraine has created one of the largest humanitarian crises, with more than 400,000 Ukrainian refugees. And I'm sure this figure has also gone up. And so there are one of the major reasons now is that there are going to be concerns about exploitation of women, including human trafficking. Now, the European Union and the Commission has done an excellent job. I do agree they have done an exemplary job in integrating refugees within its bloc. Recently, there was also on 9th of April, Canada, European Commission and Global Giving did a giving, and they raised about 9.1 billion euros. And I think European Commission is also giving about $1 billion. So they've done some fantastic work. But what could be, done to stop women's exploitation? You could, share your thoughts here.
Yes, I think what's key is to improve the living conditions of women in refugees in receiving countries. Well, for all refugees, but now we are talking in the case of women who can be exploited. But if you increase the quality of living, if you secure income, houses, access to health and education, and also access to decent jobs, I think this is key to avoid exploitation. And this is what is called by the UNHCR long-term solutions. And this has to do with the integration of refugees in the receiving countries. So you cannot expect, and like something similar happened in the war in Syria. It took more than 5 years, to stop. But then you have the country that is destroyed. So it's difficult for these refugees to come back to their countries of origin in the short time. So you have to integrate them to the receiving country, to the receiving society. And not keep them in camps and completely isolated and marginalized, but to include them in the hosting society.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's very good you brought up the case of Syria, and I think that's a great tragedy. But I think in this case, EU has taken some very important steps, integrating. I think they could come and get jobs. They don't need to have a special visa. There's been some work done.
I also think, in my opinion, it's because Ukraine is seen as a European country, although it's not formally in the European Union. People, they are white people, and the culture is similar, the religion is similar. So I think also there is a lot of racism in Europe and also Islamophobia. So I think this is also a lesson learned. Also for those of us who work with migrants and refugees, that sometimes there is also discrimination among refugees and among migrants. And some countries discriminate what kind of migrants, what kind of refugees they receive, and what kind they won't receive. And I think the most criminalized and discriminated migrants are those from South Saharan countries, in Africa. and this has to do with structural racism, and also colonialism, no, that still exists.
I think, yeah, but the situation is getting better. I think a lot of things have also improved over the time, and maybe the world needs to come together just to get a lot of countries. I think there's a lot of unrest gone around the world. You can't say that it's actually happening. Even if you look at Asia, I mean, there's a lot of turmoil in a lot of some of the countries. So I do understand. Now, when we talk about, we always come to a question about the aha moment. And before I come to the aha moment, what would you like to share? Anything about Argentina, which you think is fascinating, improving, or anything which you like to share with the audience? Feel free to, talk about it. Open-ended question, anything. Yeah, anything which you think, if but you could talk a bit about what's great about the cuisines. A lot of people want to know, because it's a very, when you talk about Argentina, first thing comes to soccer, because it's produced some of the most greatest people come from Argentina, very passionate about, soccer. That's great. And we can discuss that for hours. But what else, you have, there's this movie also.
Well, there's the music and the dance. We have it, which is called tango. I don't know if you heard.
Yeah, tango. I know. I was learning dancing, and I attended one of the classes with tango. I'd gone to a Latin American dance, and I think when I was studying in China, in Shanghai, and somebody from Costa Rica, I don't remember who he was, but he took me to a tango dance. It was fascinating. I mean, I really enjoyed the session.
Yes, so this is very special because in the rest of Latin America, the music is salsa, no, or cumbia.
Salsa.
And here in Argentina, it's very different, the music we have. And also something which is very typical, both from Argentina and Uruguay, because we are very similar culturally, Argentina and Uruguay. We talk about Rio Platenses because we share the river, we share the same river, we are on either side of the river, so we really are very, very similar culturally. And another typical thing here, well, is to eat meat, cow meat, and also to drink. There's a drink that is typical here, which is called mate. I don't know if you heard of it. And for example, we had Syrian migrants from also in the 19th century, and some of them came back to Syria, and now Syria is the third largest consumer of mate in the world because they took that back to their home. So maybe this could happen in India as well, that we don't have much Indian immigration, but maybe some migrants from India can take mate back there, and then you start also drinking this too.
Yeah, I'll check it out. I'm sure it must be.
You drink it with a straw, but and it's kind of bitter, but it's the effects is very similar to coffee. It's like it wakes you up, makes you more active.
I think I've seen in some of the Hollywood movies. Maybe I might have seen it because when you say straw, I've seen movies where they are drinking. Maybe that it must be this. I somehow have maybe I've read about it, but it's interesting. Let me check this up in India, how popular it is. I'm sure it must be very popular in Goa. So that would be the place where we'll need more about. Come to the final question. It's always been the aha moment. I do understand, we work in a sector which has very few lights, or I'll say, some things which could, make you feel happy. But I'm sure over a period of time, there must have been incidents which, gives you a lot of satisfaction. Feel free to share any of them.
Yes, I was reflecting on that. I think the most important aha moment I have in the past years has been the women's strike on the March 8th, the 8th of March, which is the International Women's Day. And I think that this global strike has been very powerful because it shows first the power of women coming together, and also it has demonstrated the importance of care work, and especially care work which is unpaid. And I think that this women's strike also shows that if women stop working, the world also stops.
I really appreciate Paola, for sharing your time. You spoke at length about various issues, and I really appreciate, and I hope, and I think it's a wonderful achievement of work which you're doing. This be great for the people from around the world to hear your views and work towards better women empowerment, whether in migration or across board. And I really want to thank you for taking time and speaking with me for the middle room.
You're much welcome.